Drive time on Joy with Lexis Bill.
That's right. There's so many ways to keep enjoying the things you love on MTN just because everything is by using mobile money or my MTN app. You can also purchase it from any vendor at the recommended retailer price and get 100% bill. Why we're good together. MTN, everywhere you go. Play with us and enjoy the highest boosted odds. Create your own winning combinations with Betika's Fabum Betty. And with only 50 pesos, you can go to GH and enjoy our fun virtuals and casino games. Betika, play with the champions. Betika is registered under the Dr. Yaw Osafo is the CEO of Medicas Hospital, and he's here. The name of your fellow Ghanaians fabric.
But to go and research.
Yeah.
We get the I have to research and find the name.
How's your week been? Have you had a good week?
Yes, absolutely. It's been very exciting, especially with our ups and gynae service.
Okay.
It looks like we're going to need some.
You need my help?
I'll give you a separate course. But
We can fast track it, can't we? Crash course. To it. I'll share this story with you from one of our good friends.
Right.
Lex, a few years ago, my dad was told he had a blood clot in his. What took him to the hospital was mild swelling in the right calf and this leg. Well, recently, I have been alarmed by snippets of information regarding the formation of blood clots up to his many years before COVID-19 was announced to the world. So, really, we were hearing alarmed. And so today, can we get some education on blood clots?
Right. So good afternoon to all our listeners and crew from Presec. When you're in secondary school, we all had these little groups of friends, your core friends. What's the core?
But he needs to know how you were in school. It's normal.
Best student I want for good behavior. Go. We used to call him Saga. He's currently a pharmacist working with the NHS in the UK, and he's listening. Right. I think the past few weeks there have been lots of conversations about blood clots. And some of us have really enjoyed issues into the forefront of a lot of minds.
Yeah.
Hitherto, we would just do, as Kweku Bako would usually say, street lawyer.
Yeah.
A lot of street doctors. Yes, and neem tree and all of these herbal medicines and all of that. So today, deep vein thrombosis.
But I said we should talk about blood clots.
Send a DVT. These are... let me start by saying when there is a break in the blood vessels and you start to bleed, then a clot is the body's response all the time around the body. So we've got what we call a double circulatory system where the blood starts from the heart. And of course, you produce new blood cells periodically. Mm-hmm. So whenever you...
Clots are supposed to form outside the body.
Like whenever...
Or
at the point when there is a breach.
Okay.
The back of your hands, for example, you would find a network. This man who sends us the message talking about his dad would focus on the clots in the deep veins of your lower limb. Much more common than forming... Typically, you form them in the lower limbs and then in the deep veins of the lower limbs. Okay. So that's where you form them. That's, again, the medical term that we use for it. And this clot is usually formed and it's a stream along the direction of flow, and it lodges in a distant part of the body. So an embolus is a floating clot, a floating thrombus stream, and when it's floating, we call it an embolus. So sometimes you see that big expression that we use medically, the thrombus, which is a clot that is fixed. And then when it breaks, then a floating clot is called. So, Kwame, why and how do clots form? Well, the clotting mechanism is one of the most sophisticated. Our body has a lot of very complex mechanisms from digestion to breathing, but one of the most sophisticated at play here. And these factors are genetic and environmental. So what we'll call the environmental factors or the pathological factors that will influence the formation. All these things happen at the cellular level, at the molecular level, and sometimes it's a bit difficult to...
So, maybe I didn't know medium. I mean, this
thrombus, they say, embolus. Some of the common factors are, for example, if you have a family history, as this person has, has that clot sometime in the future, because we would then think that you have some genetic predisposition. There's a high likelihood that you would have a clot later on in life. So if you've had it once, the site of the clot, so most like of the body, then there is an increased risk of having what we call the deep veins of the lower limbs. Very, 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 very common. So this listener talks about his dad having pain and swelling in the thrombus.
Okay.
Then the back of the knee.
The back of the knee.
Yes.
Unai-
That area that we find clots. So these are the common areas where you typically will form blood of it happening again. There was a study that looked and found out that then we realized that as high as 50% of such individuals had a genetic called Rudolph-Virchow. And this guy came out with these factors are not in isolation, but they interplay.
Okay.
So the first thing is sluggish flow. Then there's a high likelihood that you form a clot. So what are the vessels? You've got the arteries that generally take blood away from the capillary network. I mean, if we do a finger prick, for example, needle prick, the returning flow to the heart.
Mm-hmm.
So sluggish flow of blood in that network increases their risk of clot formation because their blood flow is sluggish.
Hmm.
And that is why airplanes, for example, where trying to get your calf muscles contracting and relaxing, by step flights, 12-hour flights, 10-hour flights, 8-hour flights. I actually saw a study that actually said anything more than 4 hours increases your risk.
Okay.
So people are traveling from here to Tamale, the things. Prolonged immobilization due to ill health or injuries. So somebody has a fracture, and then they have our listener who sent in this thing and saying that, the dad is retired, 70 plus, relatively inactive.
Okay.
That would be a risk factor.
Okay.
So these are some of the contributory things to sluggish blood flow. Percentage of the time it is very, very silent or asymptomatic. No reason you have pain. There is no history of trauma. Nothing bit you, swelling.
Okay.
In that same region. These are the two common, symptoms that we have.
So really though, why is it
very dangerous? Having a DVT is a big deal. And we worry because of one very fatal complication, so we realize that the embolism is a moving clot. So when a clot forms in the deep veins of the leg, those veins are big. So the clot is typically big, or the radius is very, very small. So eventually the clot, a big clot coming from the deep veins, gets stuck and Oakley. No blood gets to the heart, and the death is almost instantaneous.
Wow.
Yes, for most people, and with highly experienced doctors at hand to a lot of detail about that.
I think I get the logic of it's blocking the flow to the heart, and when blood is not going there.
Because you've been sitting for 12 hours traveling from here to the US or to the time of the flight, but 2 to 3 days later, or 12 hours after you've gotten off the flight, and you start to move, the breathing, chest pain.
I didn't want to mean that, no.
Kwame, you are very smart, you see. That's what.
Anyway.
Kwame, you use to share.
Okay.
So yes, one of the options for treatment when we use just medicines. So you may be put on a blood thinner, something to thin your blood. We may even ask you to wear stockings. So Kwame, next
to say about the Zara man. Okay, so
somebody wearing stockings, sluggish blood flow, they have a tendency to form clots.
Okay, but more importantly for me is how do we prevent it?
It's very difficult. Kwame, there are also some medical conditions that predispose people to forming clots. Doctor, find out whether or not your medical history puts you at risk of developing clots. Kwame, the use of sometimes plays for a long time. Mm-hmm. So that sedentary lifestyle is not only obesity and being unfit. Yes, everybody knows now you have a car, you're at a different station in life, but try and park the car if you have a bedridden elderly individual, it would be a good idea to get a doctor to or simulate walking by flexing the foot at the level of the ankle. So these are common tips.
302-216-541. And Theo in Terma says, Lexis, is the clot in your mouth?
No, okay, I'm not quite sure I understand it, but maybe if he had an injury there, but that's not the same thing we are talking about. We're talking about clots that happen in the blood vessels. One of the medical conditions is obesity. So one of the things we can do is to actually lose weight.
Okay.
So it's a risk factor, shedding the weight.
Exercise. You know, in my mind, I'm thinking that the more you exercise, the more the body heats.
Sluggish blood flow.
Yeah.
That's one of the first or one of the most important factors that vehicle.
Senna, go ahead.
Hi,
Let's hear
Senna.
you.
Okay, my mom also has the clot, but
Where?
in the leg. She wake up crying that she has muscle pull. She has the clot all over the leg.
Okay.
But you said something that when you lead a sedentary lifestyle, that is when
Sluggish blood flow, yes. Being stationary for long periods. It could be traveling.
you lead a sedentary lifestyle, she doesn't travel.
Right.
So I'm wondering how she even got it in the first place.
Right. So, Senna, I did mention some individuals who have some genetic predisposition, protein C deficiency, protein S deficiency, and so many other medical conditions, heart failure, kidney, to tell why exactly she got the clots.
Okay.
All right.
So what should we do now? She's been wearing the stockings. So
We'll get a lot more detailed history, and then we can take it from there.
okay.
All right. Thank you. Lexis, please. I'm an Uber driver and I sit basically 12 hours each day driving. Am I at risk? It's from Clifford.
Stepping on the pedals periodically would improve. It's like anything that contracts and relaxes the. But 12-hour shifts, take regular breaks. I don't think you are moving passengers the entire 12 hours.
I'm now having something like Anansi on my leg. Am I having a clot?
Well, in a region of the limb, and then swelling in that region.
Okay.
If you are concerned, so the number is 0501 477 340. 0501 47.
You. See you next week.
Right. Kwame.
Dr. Osafo is the CEO of Medicas Hospital in. Stay tuned into Joy 99.7 FM. Our drive chat is proudly brought to you by MTN TC.